In East Asian cultures, the number 4 is considered bad luck due to the word sounding a lot like pain or death phonetically in many East Asian languages. Today I'll be talking about Junji Ito, one of the world's most influential mangaka and horror icons, and we'll be doing this in just 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Junji Ito is a mangaka who has inspired the world with his horror manga since the late 80s and early 90s. The things he's worked on have inspired millions of people worldwide, and despite what many think, he's actually a very reserved yet happy-go-lucky scaredy cat, which is the opposite of what is portrayed through his manga and writing. Talking about Junji Ito's work is much like talking about the people who inspired him. For example, the characters and situations his characters go through are cruel, unidentifiable, surreal, and often lead to his characters to suffer insanity or fates worse than death, similar of course to H.P. Lovecraft, whom he cited as one of his major inspirations. And the way in Junji Ito draws his characters are so vivid, detailed, dark, and mind-shattering that you can't help but think of Kazuo Umezu, another serious inspiration of his, who is sometimes considered the grandfather of all horror manga. But of course, I'm sure you've all heard of this by now. The man is, after all, incredibly famous, which is why I recommend looking for other content creators who made their own videos that go in depth on why Junji Ito is so good and his inspirations behind everything he does, because seriously, there's dozens upon dozens of videos that are far more detailed and a lot longer. I simply wanted to make this video to appreciate the man who made our skin crawl and admire some of his pieces of work. Of course, we have Uzumaki, undoubtedly one of his most popular pieces of work out there, that is being made into an anime now as we speak. The visuals alone invoke a feeling of dread, and the way Junji Ito uses black and white to his advantage to fill in the gaps of both our imagination and his is foreign and familiar. Taking a shape that looks something that we know, yet exaggerating it into something unfamiliar is what horror is all about. It's why movies like The Thing are so terrifying, because we see things that we know, yet it's so mangled and torn that it becomes unregisterable to the human mind. His horror also isn't very far off from the things we fear as humans. The concepts of claustrophobia, for example, can be seen in the enigma of Amigara Fault. Even if you don't have that fear, Junji Ito instills that fear within you. The stories make you curious, but the fear of the unknown is twisted within you like a dagger to your psyche. The fear of holes, trypophobia, is relatively new and unknown to some, but reading Shivers might just help you realize a fear you've never even known you had. Acne is a socially scary thing to have, but Junji Ito will give you nightmares over the concept of just letting the grease flow from your face, taking a common fear and enhancing it tenfold, using shapes and shadows to emphasize the horror that lurks within, as well as cleverly utilizing the page of his books to emphasize and enhance his scares. While Junji Ito is, in short, a genius in his craft. For my own personal input, I can't help but think of old 1940s and 1950s sort of black and white era horror films I used to see. They too heavily emphasize the shadows and the casting of the darkness that is within black and white films. It's really rather beautiful, but oddly scary and horrifying to see what Junji Ito can make. The incredibly small details that he puts into every single page that he works on, handcrafted, is incredible, and it is amazing what he can do with digital art. The textures he puts on his characters and everything in between, such as the environment and the backgrounds, can almost be felt. It almost scratches the back of your brain and makes you realize that maybe I did experience this once in a lifetime. Maybe not by my own, but maybe from a past life. Sort of like a primal fear that is instilled with you that you never even knew about. These disturbing imageries just stick with you for a lifetime. Going back to Uzumaki, you can never forget that one image of that girl with her spiral head. It's a famous image that has lasted with the horror community for a lifetime now. Sadly though, with such great detail, it's almost impossible to replicate that same art style in an anime, as we've seen with his failure anime of the Junji Ito collection. No doubt these people did their best, but it's really impossible to sort of replicate that sort of anime without taking years of your time for every single fine detail, especially if you're gonna do it in color when most of this was casted in black and white. There is hope right around the corner with Uzumaki's anime. And of course, we'll always have the mangas. My personal favorite is Frankenstein. Frankenstein has always been my favorite novel of all time, so seeing the creator behind Uzumaki remake one of my favorite novels ever is pretty much a treat. It's a shame we could never see him work on Silent Hills. Regardless of this, Junji Ito will go down in history as one of the most influential horror icons of all time. With the manga he's made and the manga he'll make in the future, as well as the anime that will soon come out and hopefully inspire more people in the future, there's no doubt in my mind that Junji Ito is a legend.